Warning: this video will contain spoilers for both Steven Universe, Steven Universe the movie, and Steven Universe Future. If you haven't watched these yet, please go over and watch, or if you're comfortable being spoiled, then welcome. There will also be mentions of triggering topics such as trauma and destructive behaviors, so if this becomes too much for you, please don't hesitate to click off the video. Thank you in advance for watching. I also want to add a slight disclaimer here. When I originally started planning out the details for the script, there were a lot of popular videos dissing on Steven Universe. My old script spent a lot of the time focusing on explaining plot points and going through the reasons why I felt these videos weren't true. I felt I couldn't make this video without people understanding the context of the show, and without them implying some sort of bias onto the show. Well, that was almost a year and a half ago, and since then, there have been multiple people coming out and making their own video essays on Steven Universe and setting the record straight. I highly recommend watching any of these video essays if you're new to the topic and if you want to understand where I'm coming from. There are a lot of topics that Steven Universe touches on that this video won't be addressing that I personally believe are valuable to understanding before watching this. Steven Universe Future was a hard-hitting series that really delved into the topics of trauma and maladaptive coping mechanisms and how different people process trauma in different ways. Looking back at the original series, I think it's fair to say that I can see how the pieces line up to tell the story about CPTSD. I think it's important to say that this is just my interpretation as somebody who has CPTSD, so I'm more likely to see myself in media that wasn't originally intended that way. But I think Steven Universe may be the one exception where I can see why it would tell a story of somebody with PTSD or CPTSD such as myself. Before jumping into the show, there are a few things to know about PTSD and CPTSD to keep in mind for the future. When we talk about CPTSD, there will also be mentions of non-complex PTSD because of the way that PTSD has all the same symptoms. It just also has its own. PTSD in the ICD-11 is defined by symptoms that relate to core post-traumatic responses that describe fear-based reactions. These symptoms can include re-experiencing the traumatic event in the present, avoidance of reminders of the traumatic event, and persistent perceptions of heightened current threat. CPTSD is organized into two overarching groups of symptoms: symptoms relating to PTSD and symptoms related to the disturbance of self-organization, also known as the DSO. The DSO domain describes three clusters of symptoms: problems in affect regulation, negative self-concept, and disturbances in relationships. Exposure to childhood traumatic life events in particular is associated with increased likelihood in developing CPTSD. I truly believe that you can see the buildup of Steven's trauma slowly morph as the writers wove a path to tell the story about Steven's mental health.
Unlock! Activate! Go! Please! Everyone's counting on you! You can't just be useless! I know you can help! What do you know about my mom? I didn't even get to know my mom! I don't know how to feel about you, but everybody else does. I wish I could have met you. Then this place could make me sad. And I could cry healing tears, like you. I wonder what kind of lunch my mom would have made me. Maybe actual space cookies! I just wish I knew a little more about her.
A huge piece of the main show is the fact that Steven is a people pleaser. He puts his own emotions and his own worries aside as long as it means he can help somebody. This isn't uncommon when it comes to CPTSD and is an actual trauma response called fawning. The fawn response is a coping mechanism in which individuals develop people-pleasing behaviors to avoid conflict, pacify their abusers, and create a sense of safety. We can see this happen multiple times throughout the show, and this is something that's been highly criticized and memed over the years, but I personally believe that these were the starting signs of Steven's PTSD.
It's not just the Robonoids. According to Lapis, she's going to have backup.
Who knows what she's going to have? We won't stand a chance against their weapons. But if we can just knock them out...
It's not about the Robonoids, Pearl.
I mean, it was thousands of years ago. It's not like I was there. The gems should be telling you all this stuff, but I get it. I mean, they don't want you thinking of them like that.
There are some people who feel like we missed out on other characters' developments because we only focus on Steven, and that they feel like the plot became stagnant at times due to filler episodes. And for that, I want to quote this clip.
I mean, what's your secret? How'd you get so talented?
Don't focus so much on talent, Steven. Making art is all about communication. A piece of art is a conversation. Every choice you make is a statement. Don't worry about labels or conforming to a standard. Just be true to yourself, and people will appreciate your honesty.
Whoa. Thanks for the advice.
The thing about all of our filler episodes is that they begin to paint a picture of trauma. They show how Steven is a people pleaser and how he's constantly putting people before himself. No matter how minuscule the task is, he's always fixing something or someone else. He is always trying to help in one way or another. The more we see of Steven on screen, the more it solidifies to me that they are actively making a choice to show us this. Not just this, but they're actively choosing to show Lapis the way she is presented.
Dad, you might think she's a criminal, but her friendship comes through subliminal.
I thought I'd stay a while. I tried to learn to smile. So many colors I had never even known. Then I see the colors fading. Gentleness of light escaping, shadows of my fear invading. Have I seen this all before? I know.
She was never meant to be perceived as an abuser or the aggressor because Lapis 2 is a presentation of trauma in its own right. In this video, we'll be touching on the trauma and presentation of multiple characters, and I hope that this will begin to paint a better picture for all of you. To start off with Steven, I want to say that I do find it a bit ironic that Steven shares Rose's healing powers and doesn't develop her destructive powers until the future seasons. During his peak people-pleasing times, he also had a power that literally correlates to fixing damage that, in the end, was caused by his mom. He goes through a whole character arc where he has to learn to address his problems and reaches a state of awareness before he's able to truly use his healing powers. His powers are also affected by his mind state.
Your age is fluctuating. I think your gem is reacting to your state of mind.
By now, Steven has realized his powers are tied to his emotions. Just like I knew would happen, he's used the memories of happy and sad things to land safely behind us, ready to give us a hug.
With him believing that his powers no longer work due to his father's actions.
You lied to me! Now I can't do it anymore!
What?
The gems needed me to fix the broken rock, but my powers aren't working. It's because of you! You messed with my head!
No, I didn't mean for... I just wanted to live with my son again.
I really thought I was getting better. I finally felt like a crystal gem. Now what if I can't do anything? Look what I can do!
All right, it's a steep party. What is the meaning of this?
My healing spit is back. I fixed a rip on MC Bear Bear. Here, I'll show you.
This is something that can be seen in actual abuse victims in real life. There are these things called core beliefs that form during our childhoods, and the way they work is like this. Core beliefs are strong, long-term beliefs a person has that help them understand how the world works and who they are. These beliefs begin forming in early childhood and influence a person's personality, decision-making, and mental health. These beliefs act as rules for managing relationships in daily life. People use them to set expectations and react in stressful situations. However, they are not always balanced or accurate. These core beliefs help you base your reaction for the future, and you learn them from a very young age. When we apply this to Steven, we can see that his core beliefs are very reliant on him helping people. I want to quote Harley Therapy here to better explain how this applies to Steven though. It is easy to convince ourselves that we are positive thinkers, and yet many of us don't actually take the time to properly listen to our thoughts. If we do, we might discover it's a radio show of negativity. The intro really helps set the tone for a lot of the internal struggles. No matter what he does, he's always going to be seen as a kid. At the start of the season, we see Steven struggling with his powers and trying to navigate how to be a crystal gem with how finicky they are.
Garnet, Amethyst, and Pearl think I shouldn't go on magic adventures because I don't know how to use my gem powers.
That seems reasonable.
But there are other ways I can help. What? I'm a gem. Open door. Aw, it never worked when I need it. This is all my fault. I broke it.
No, Steven. The spire was falling apart when we got here.
My life is over. I can't go on magic adventures.
He's not sure if he can even really call himself a crystal gem in the first place. He continuously tries to prove himself to those around him as he can and is constantly shut down. Whenever Steven has a genuine problem, he's pushed to the side or made to wait. He wasn't taught how to control his powers because the gems didn't even know how. Everything Steven learned about himself was through his own volition and his own hard work. Even when the gems do know something, they tend to leave Steven in the dark for a majority of the series.
Wait, I can do that too?
Steven, it's okay. Pearl's gonna be just fine.
What do you mean?
Sometimes, if our bodies are badly damaged, we release our physical forms and retreat to our gems to regenerate.
The gems were trying to tell me something about Mom's room. But I was so mad I didn't listen. They're always leaving me behind, and I guess I wanted to do it to them too.
That's not so bad. Everyone needs some alone time now and then.
Even his father leaves him in the dark because he doesn't really know anything about the gems.
Dad, like what?
Like aliens, Steven. Aliens who invaded Earth.
What?
All they do is try to make up for it, but they just can't forgive themselves. Do you understand?
Did Mom ever talk to you about Pink Diamond?
There were some things your mom didn't like to talk about. I never pressed her for details.
Steven, from a very young age, is subconsciously being taught to put himself to the side and wait. There's only one other gem who's really been upfront with him, and that has been Amethyst.
Steven, wait. I'm just using you to get the tag team belt. I'll do all the actual fighting.
Do I still get to wear the costume?
I don't care.
Okay!
Amethyst has always been a counterpart to Steven in a way. She also struggles with trauma, both from being with the Crystal Gems, but also from her time before the Crystal Gems.
I'm not gonna let you stand there and remind me of everything I hate about myself! I never asked for it to be this way. I never asked to be made.
She doesn't know where she fits into her society, but she also knows she doesn't belong in human society. She's younger than the rest of the Crystal Gems, and she's a runt.
Despite the fact that you're defective. Defective? Well, sure. You're small.
So?
Well, you're not supposed to be. And everyone's always acting like there's no problem. You can be anything you want to be. No, I can't. I can't even be the one thing I'm supposed to be, you know?
She's there to help Steven tell his story, while also introducing her own story of trauma.
But your kindergartens are radically different.
What? Hold on, what?
We're both from Earth?
Well, sure. Amethyst, you're from the Prime Kindergarten in Facet 5. She's from the Beta Kindergarten in Facet 9. Have you seen that place?
No.
Oh, well, maybe you should.
Amethyst somewhat gets what Steven is going through. It's not the same, but it's an internal struggle about feeling like you don't belong. It's the reason they're able to bond more later in the seasons, but we'll address that more in Amethyst's chapter. Something none of them were taught seems to be coping skills. They all have their own maladaptive coping mechanisms they use, and you can see how this influenced Steven. Amethyst tries to bury her emotions and compartmentalize them in an attempt to control her own emotions.
In the ring, nobody can tell me what to do. And if they try, I hit them in the face with a chair. Everyone here gets that. You don't know what it's like having Pearl and Garnet on your back all the time.
Insecure.
Pearl is stuck in the past and refuses to do anything to change her perspective or her emotion.
I knew how you felt about Rose, and I stayed anyway.
That wasn't the problem.
Then what was?
She fell in love with you.
Obsessed.
Garnet completely suppresses and avoids her problems.
Ooh, Keystone Caverns.
Calm down. I don't feel like forgiving Pearl. Don't understand, you must. If you're not going to listen, then you can just go!
Greg says to run from his problems.
Nothing's gonna fix this, is it?
Greg!
I'm sorry you had to be around me.
Dad!
Steven's go-to is people-pleasing,
Pearl, you have to tell me what's wrong.
and later on aggression.
Stop it! I can't deal with one more horrible thing she did, okay?
We see a mix of every single one of these in Steven, and it brings me back to the Cactus Steven episode of Future.
I'm sorry I mistreated you. I know you didn't mean to hurt anyone. You're just learning from the only role model you've got. Me. I should have given you more of the love and kindness that you deserve. So, who wants a hug?
Children, by nature, are very malleable beings. You can shape and mold them into whatever you'd like them to be, give or take a couple of things here or there. Steven was guided not just by his father, but by the Crystal Gems in one of the most developmental years of his life. These are his core beliefs, and this is how he was taught how to live. This is what set Steven up for his breakdown later in Steven Universe Future. With all that being said, let's talk about the introduction of Lapis.
You actually talked to me. You helped me. It's Steven, right? I'm Lapis. Lapis Lazuli. Are you really a crystal gem?
Yeah!
But you set me free.
But...
You three knew I was in there. And you didn't do anything. Did you even wonder who I used to be? Don't trust them, Steven. Goodbye.
Very quickly, this is where Steven learns to question the Crystal Gems. For one of the first times in his life, he's told not to trust his caretakers and not to take everything they say at face value. This is something that sticks with Steven for the rest of his life as we know it, and reoccurs in later seasons.
Steven, don't go. You have to trust me.
I don't understand, Garnet.
At least you're usually honest with me.
Just stay here. For me.
I won't.
I know.
Aside from the show, something that's very important to remember is this. The protagonist isn't always right. The protagonist isn't always good. The protagonist isn't always written to be relatable or likable. The narrator isn't always right. The narrator isn't always good. The narrator isn't always telling the truth. The narrator isn't always the author. The protagonist's moral compass, the narrator's moral compass, and the author's moral compass are three entirely different things that only occasionally overlap. Pay attention to what characters do and not just what they say. Pay special attention when what the characters do is at odds with what they say. A lot of the time the curtains are blue for a reason. If they aren't, you should read better books. Now, obviously this is a children's show, but I love to hyperanalyze everything, and I truly believe that death of the author happens with children's media as well, even if this means expanding it to a slightly more intellectual level. Back on topic though, I want to talk about Rose's story and trauma. There's a common misconception that Rose genuinely cared about the safety and well-being of humanity and gems. A lot of this happened due to the fact that that's what Steven's told by the crystal gems.
However, she began to take notice of her strange colony and the life that existed there. Curiosity turned to appreciation. Appreciation turned to fondness. And fondness turned to love.
They were doing something awful to the planet, and your mother couldn't stand it anymore. She told me that's why she had to turn on her own kind. She gave up everything just to stop what they started here, and drive the invading gems off of Earth.
So, she saved the world, that's good!
No such thing as a good war, kiddo. Gems were destroyed. People too.
This is where the narrator is not always telling the truth. Rose, or in this case, Pink Diamond, was a very troubled person. She's shown to have a very controlling family unit.
I cannot believe you making a scene like that. Pink. White is very unhappy with you. If this keeps up, she's going to take away your pearl.
I know. I'm sorry. Maybe Pink thought you guys were right to lock her in here when she messed stuff up. But I know what it's like to have a loving family. And we don't do stuff like this to each other. And you guys poofed him for sticking up for me. That isn't normal.
That's enough!
This isn't normal. How many times did you lock her in here? How many times did you make her cry?
I didn't. And I'm doing it again, aren't I?
Once Pink got tired of asking Yellow and Blue for her own colony, so she went straight to White. Of course, White told her she wasn't fit to run one, and well, that set her off.
I forgot to add this part into the script, but it's common for neglected or abused children to act out as a way to vent their stress or cry for help. Adolescents who have experienced abuse might suffer from depression, anxiety, or social withdrawal. In addition, adolescents who live in violent situations tend to run away to what they perceive to be safer environments. This, for Pink, would be Earth. Signs that abused or neglected children may present that relate to Pink are show unusual aggression, rages, or tantrums, clinging to adult strangers, hyperactive or unusual behavior, manipulative behavior to get attention, apathy and withdrawn behavior,
and has multiple emotional outbursts related to it. It's obvious that Pink is meant to be the youngest of the Diamonds, and it's also very relevant to mention that this would be Pink's developmental times in her life, seeing as this is what stuck with her the most. Obviously, trauma won't affect gems the same way. In fact, we know trauma affects them differently. We see that each gemstone has what could be considered a default personality. The jaspers are confident, the amethysts are brazen, and the diamonds are very poignant. With this, we almost have a baseline to work off of how trauma would affect them all. We can see that Pink Diamond was struggling with who she was meant to be in this world, and with her self-identity. We also know that trauma actively affects the way you perceive yourself and the way you experience your self-identity. Trauma can disrupt one's sense of identity, and one's identity can affect the way one perceives and recovers from trauma. The trauma, however, can become incorporated into one's identity. The fact that you have to face trauma and how you deal with that trauma can be life-defining, though trauma can be viewed as a turning point in life or as a reference point for expectations about the future. These were Pink's core beliefs about herself. We can actively see that this is how Pink goes on to interact with the Earth. She doesn't want to conquer it, she wants to explore it. She was always pushed to the side and never taken seriously, similarly to how Steven was treated at the start of the show. Pink's self-identity is actively shown playing out as she transforms into Rose, feeling more comfortable as somebody who she isn't. Rose was touted as this glorious rebel for planet Earth because she was fascinated by it. It would be rather hard for Pink Diamond to shapeshift into Rose and visit the Earth and its creatures had the Earth continued to be destroyed. It never started as her morals being questioned.
I'm commanding the dropships to colonize this planet.
I want to command a dropship!
Well, when you have your own colony, you can command whatever you want.
I want a colony!
It was always her interests and wants. It was self-serving on her end. In reality, we know that Pink was originally trying to prove a point to her parental figures, only to find that the Earth was being treated similarly to the way she was. That's when it became about morals for her. But Steven never saw the side of Rose until far, far later in the series, when he's already formed his ideas and opinions about the world and about his mom. The show has always touched on the topic of trauma. It started talking about Pearl and Rose, and it transitioned into Garnet with Homeworld, and it continued with Lapis and Jasper. When Steven was younger, he was the odd one out by not processing what he went through. All the humans around him were able to process and move on, but the gems aren't. Steven shows a perfect middle ground. It reminds me a bit of cognitive empathy. Cognitive empathy, also known as empathy accuracy, involves having more complete and accurate knowledge about the contents of another person's mind, including how the person feels. Steven grasps that he's gone through a traumatic situation, and he's stopped to apply this to other people around him, but never truly himself. There were a lot of smaller hints throughout the series implying trauma and PTSD that were beyond easy to brush off. They were just comments from insecure and at the time unreliable characters.
Seriously, Steven, you've been under a lot of pressure. Don't you think you deserve to have a little fun?
So everything is going to be okay?
What? No.
You lied to them?
Look, Steven, it's not lying when you're the mayor. It's politics.
It is?
Of course it is. Let me tell you something. When you work for the government, you can't control what happens in the world, but you can control how people feel about it. That's the real weight I carry. Making the good people of Beach City feel better, safer, more secure.
But...
what's my other option? Let the people panic and riot?
It never really stuck out in our brains as important until you reach the end of the series and it's like, oh.
I'm pleased to announce that Steven is finally ready to take his rightful place on Pink Diamond's throne.
How's it going, everybody?
It is important. In the first episode with Lapis, it was very easy to feel extremely off-put by the idea that the gems are used as objects. Lapis clearly states that the crystal gems knew she was in the mirror, and she's right, they did. It starts out as something we didn't understand either, because just like Steven, we too weren't given the context, or told everything. Not only is it something that's addressed in the universe, but it's something that starts telling the story of Lapis's trauma. She was caught up in a war and trapped in a mirror, forced to be a servant to those around her.
They'd ask me, show us your base. Where's your leader? I didn't know. And I couldn't say, I'm not one of them. It soon became clear that there was no hope in stopping the rebellion. All of the Homeworld gems fled. In all the panic of escaping Earth, I was left behind. And there I stayed. Freedom in my sight, but out of reach for ages. Until I was found.
Strip this down to the bare-bone components and you have a massive allegory for abuse and trauma. Feeling trapped, isolated, and alone. Feeling like you're in the middle of a war in your family life, or even quite literally in a war if you consider the old beliefs about PTSD. Forced to bend to the whim of those around you. This could fit in domestic situations, familial or romantic situations, or even in platonic relationships as well. The rest of her storyline plays out very obviously showing the negative and ugly side of abuse.
You don't have to be with Jasper.
That's not it. I miss her.
What?
We refused for so long.
But she's terrible.
I'm terrible. I did horrible things. I broke your dad's leg. I stole Earth's ocean. Go on. Tell me I'm wrong.
People criticize it heavily for this and even go as far as to call Lapis the abusive one. But this is an actual reaction that millions of abuse survivors have. Many trauma survivors, especially those who went through trauma at a very young age, never learn any other way of handling threats. They tend to become stuck in their ways of reacting when they feel threatened. They may be impulsive, acting before they think. Aggressive behaviors also include complaining, backstabbing, being late or doing a poor job on purpose, self-blame, or even self-injury. Many people with PTSD use aggressive responses to threats. They are not able to use other responses that could be more positive. We see this as very apparent with Lapis in the way she treats other people.
Maybe you should switch with Pumpkin.
Let's make Pumpkin the Garnet. You should be the Pearl.
I'm nothing like Pearl. She's so uptight and sensitive. How dare you, I'm leaving!
That's so funny. You should be Amethyst.
That's so dumb. You should be a Claude.
Oh, so now I'm a Claude? I think you're the Claude.
Wow, your Peridot impression is lousy too!
Not only this, but she has the self-blame.
It's my fault. I'm the one to blame.
And doing a poor job on purpose. We know Lapis to act impulsively, and this isn't where her symptoms with trauma end. After trauma, a person with PTSD may think or believe that threat is all around them, even when this is not true. He or she may not be fully aware of these thoughts and beliefs. If you have PTSD, you may not be aware of how your thoughts and beliefs have been affected by trauma. For instance, since the trauma, you may feel a greater need to control your surroundings. This may lead you to act inflexibly towards others. Your actions then provoke others to become hostile towards you. Their hostile behavior then feeds into you and reinforces your beliefs about others. Some common thoughts of people with PTSD are, you can't trust anyone. If I got out of control, it would be horrible, life-threatening, or it could not be tolerated. After all I've been through, I deserve to be treated better than this. Others are out to get me, or they won't protect me. This is one of Lapis's main character arcs. When she got Jasper locked away under the ocean, she has massive amounts of guilt and worries of things are getting out of control.
Lapis! Can't you see? I can't stop. Not for a second. Don't look for me. I don't want your help. I don't want your help. Things are bad enough as it is. I've already made too much trouble. Once we get back to Homeworld, they're going to decide what to do with us. I don't have time for this! Wait! Steven, whatever you're doing, just stop. If we do everything they say, they might go easy on us.
She actively tells Jasper that she deserves better than her.
What we had wasn't healthy. I never want to feel like I felt with you. Never again. So just go.
She fears the crystal gems won't be enough to protect her from the diamonds.
I am not getting caught in the middle of another war. I'm still terrified of the diamonds coming to Earth, but I got just outside the Milky Way and I felt so lonely. What if the diamonds show up? What if something bad happens? What does that mean? Are they coming?
I don't know.
What if they are? What if they're close? Why else would you see them? Steven, I don't know what I was thinking. I'm not like you and your friends, Steven. I can't just let go of what happened to me. I can't go through that again.
Would you rather be alone?
I'm sorry.
All of her actions are dictated by her trauma, and in my opinion, that is who Lapis is as a character. Not only this, but most people stating that Lapis is abusive are implying that self-defense against Jasper is somehow not okay. Steven Universe has clearly set out that the powers and occasionally fusion are used as a form of defense, and Jasper has shown time and time again taking away Lapis's abilities to use her powers. On top of this, we're very explicitly shown Jasper having to coerce consent for Lapis to fuse. If Pearl fusing with Garnet without consent was such a big plot point, do we not see it relevant to hold the same weight with Lapis and Jasper? Both in the real world and as set in canon in Steven Universe's world, coercion is not consent, platonic, romantic, or in any other form of relationship. And to wrap that with a bow, Jasper is trying to kill the crystal gems multiple times. Lapis was actively friends with Steven and tried to protect them. But that may be my only point having to defend the show from people, because I don't see many people talking about that. Like, that's actually kind of crazy. Like, she is an abuse victim. What do you mean? But this is another situation of how there is no such thing as a perfect victim. The ideal victim, or perfect victim, is the one generating the most sympathy from society. In some cultures, the ideal victim would be a little old lady on her way home at midday after caring for a sick sister, hit on the head by some men who grab her purse and use the money to buy drugs. But because Lapis isn't perfect, because she's aggressive and defends herself, she's not viewed as a victim. They see her as the aggressor, and it's crazy. Like, this reflects on real abuse victims in real life, too. It's not just a show at the end of the day. I'm adding this in during editing, but Lapis and Jasper were very obviously trauma bonded. I don't understand why people have this notion that Lapis should have just left, which, oh my god, that kind of commentary against abuse victims already is just such victim blaming mentality. But besides that, she is literally, by definition, trauma bonded to Jasper. With trauma bonding, one person abuses the other.
You're pointing that shield the wrong way. She's the one you should be afraid of.
That's not true.
You can't lie to me. I've seen what you're capable of. I thought I was a brute, but you...
Inflicting trauma, but follows with positive reinforcement.
It'll be better this time. I've changed. You've changed me.
For the other person, these traumatic experiences bring a wide array of complicated emotions that can be difficult to cope with.
I'm the only one who can handle your kind of power.
As a result, a person might start to feel bonded to the abusive person. They start to build an emotional attachment because they've convinced themselves it is love.
That's not it. I miss her.
What?
We refused for so long.
This is quite literally their entire relationship. What do you mean? I could go insane ranting about it. Holy crap. After this, Lapis does act extremely volatile towards Peridot. This is because she views Peridot as everything Homeworld stands for.
I don't care about paint cans. That's not the problem.
What's wrong, Lapis?
It's her. She's the problem. I can't stand the thought of having to look at her every day. She's the one who dragged me back to Earth.
Hey, it wasn't my idea. I was headed to Earth and I needed an informant. It should have been a simple mission. Things didn't exactly work out for either of us.
You used me like everyone else did.
But it's not like that anymore. It's different now. I'm different.
Seeing as Homeworld is a big piece of her trauma, and reliving your trauma is a big piece of PTSD, I think it's fair to say that she could have easily have been having a trauma response. In this case, Lapis's trauma response is obviously fight and flee. It's also very common for trauma victims to go through a period of time where they experience depressive episodes, aggression, and outbursts. Everybody experiences trauma differently, and I personally believe that Lapis is not the only character who represents the maladaptive side of trauma. But on that topic, let's talk about Peridot. She too has her own presentation of trauma against Homeworld, and we can see how she ruminates on thoughts relating to her betrayal of Homeworld.
You don't understand. I'm protecting a planet I was once trying to destroy. I used to follow every order, every rule. Now I'm a traitor, a rebel, a crystal gem.
We won't let them get you.
Haven't I caused you enough trouble?
Don't worry, Peridot. It's our sworn duty to protect anything that calls this planet home. And that includes clods like you.
That's my word.
She fears the diamonds, and she no longer has a home outside of the crystal gems. She has no choice. Everything she once knew was taken from her, and we can even see her go through a period of depression.
Peridot is still depressed all up in your B-room?
Yeah.
While it's clear that Peridot is a huge allegory for autism, I think it's also fair to say that she represents the subsect of traumas that slightly lingers. It affects you, of course, but it's not debilitating as other traumas may be for other people. Peridot is able to eventually process what she went through on her own time and acts as a guiding force for Lapis to gauge her own reactions off of. The two share a borderline codependent relationship together, and we can see how they begin to fall apart without having each other, having to find stable grounding again. But since I've brought it up, I'd like to explain what that is. Codependency is a dysfunctional relationship dynamic where one person assumes the role of the giver, sacrificing their own needs and well-being for the sake of the other, the taker. The bond in question doesn't have to be romantic. It can occur just as easily between parent, friends, children, and family members. According to this way of thinking, creating emotional distance from the troubled loved one is necessary and beneficial for the codependent partner. It is a way to expose them to the negative consequences of their behavior. In being reliable, caring, nurturing, the codependent partner is perceived to be exhibiting any number of weaknesses of his or her own, from low self-esteem and an excessive need to please others, to poor interpersonal boundaries that make him or her feel responsible for other people's problems. Honestly, in hindsight, it only makes sense that the gems would be codependent, seeing as they constantly have to give and take from Homeworld. And with Lapis specifically, seeing as the way that she and Jasper had that give and take relationship, it only makes sense that the second that she and Peridot and that she and Steven became friends, there would be a slight codependency there that they would have to work through. You know what I mean?
This piece is called Wow, Thanks. It represents the struggles of intercommunication. The tape is the ribbon that binds our experience on Earth together. It has no functional purpose. It just makes me feel bad. That's so dumb. You should be a Claude.
Oh, so now I'm a Claude? I think you're the Claude.
Wow, your Peridot impression is lousy too!
Well, you two can it? Did I do something?
I think it might be more complicated than that. Why don't you stay here and admire more of the plants?
Lapis!
Lapis!
Just 1 second. I want to check and make sure Lapis is okay.
What starts out as a codependent relationship eventually grows into a healthy one with time and distance. The two relied on each other to, in human standards, an unhealthy degree. The two were trying to process their own traumas respectively, Peridot with Homeworld and Lapis with Jasper. They both, at first, had a tendency to take it out on each other. Slowly, they were able to connect as friends, but it wasn't until they were forced to deal with their problems on their own that the two were able to reconnect in a proper, healthy manner. Going down this line of thinking, however, Spinel is another great example of somebody who went down the people-pleaser to trauma victim pipeline. She also shows multiple examples of aggressive outbursts towards people she believes to be her aggressor. Spinel basically starts out as a happy, carefree child before she's thrust into a world of neglect. She's ignored, isolated, and not cared for thousands of years until she finds out that the person she cared for had moved on with somebody else. A new plaything. A new child. She's feeling like she's been told she doesn't matter anymore, and she doesn't know what that means for her entire existence before this moment now.
You're not the only one she hurts.
Yeah, you must know all about her life without me. Rub it in, why don't you?
No, it's not like that. You deserve a better friend.
It's a crushing reality, and sometimes the only thing you can do is scream, cry, and hit something. Though it's usually recommended to hit a pillow and not a person, or, Earth with an injector. All I'm trying to say is, both Spinel and Lapis's presentation of trauma is valid. It happens in real life, and it doesn't make them abusers or bad people. It means they're complex beings who did bad things, just like humans do. It's a kid's show, and it's teaching a valuable lesson to kids during their formative, most moldable years. Remember how I mentioned that before? Kids shows talking about these topics are very important because it shows children that they don't have to resort to anger and violence to deal with your emotions.
Listen to me, Spinel. I understand. After everything you've been through, you must be in a lot of pain.
No. No. You don't understand. You can't change the way I feel.
That's right. Only you can.
It also shows that even if some people do, there may be a bigger problem lying deeper underneath the surface.
I used to be just not good enough. Just not good enough for Pink, but now I'm not good at all. That's funny, right? At least you found me entertaining. You actually liked me, didn't you? What am I doing? Why do I want to hurt you so bad? I'm supposed to be a friend. I just want to be a friend.
Spinel.
Kinda like the cluster. It doesn't mean they're bad or good people. It just means that they're people, like you or me, and that they deserve the same amount of human respect and human decency to feel as though they're wanted and loved in the world. Next, I'd like to touch on the next 3 to 5 crystal gems before I can finally truly address Steven's trauma. And by the way, when I say every character in the show can represent trauma, I mean very literally every single character in the show.
Dad? Sour cream. When did you get so tall?
Like 9 years ago?
Whoa. Sorry I've been going so long, but you know how the music biz can be, right?
It is too a viable career. 80% of Germans make their living DJing. Why can't you just accept that I don't want to be a fisherman like you?
First, lose your youth to your boring job. Then, lose the only person you've ever felt truly close to. And then, lose your mind working all his shifts.
I bet you get pretty lonely waiting for your dad all day. You were probably really bored, too.
This was your last chance to have all your friends in the same place. Onion felt really sad about his summer friends leaving. But then he started to feel a little better. He remembered all the great times he had with his friends and all the cool stuff they did together. And until next summer, he had his pal Steven to hang out with. If he wants to. Aw, buddy.
You and your crew kept going. You got separated, but you were still fighting. Then, new orders from your commander to retreat. Everyone's running, but from what? You don't know. Where's your crew? Where's your ship? You stopped. You heard something. From the sky, a sound. A song? And then...
If you want to comment below and ask me about one, I can explain it more. But it's mainly linked to the plot of the death of Pink Diamond and how it led to the grief of mass majority of gems and the trauma that they experienced due to that. But each gem has their own individual story as well. I just wanted to point that out. To start off, there's Ruby and Sapphire. Both of their stories are very, very similar, but also very different.
We really did stay Garnet because Rose told us we were the answer. It's my first time really thinking about it. It's my first time really thinking about me. Back
back when I emerged, the first thing I did was get crammed together with a bunch of other rubies. Then, I was with Sapphire all the time. I was always checking in on someone.
Blue Diamond's voice cut through the crowd. The rebels have fled. Sapphire, this is not the scenario you described.
This is not what I saw. I don't know what happened. No! It was me!
Clearly, said Blue Diamond. How dare you fuse with a member of my court? Sapphire had known every moment of her life, how it would happen, and when. But because of Ruby's impulsive gesture, she suddenly jumped the track of fate, and everything from that instant on was wrong, and new. She couldn't see, she couldn't move. She was frozen.
2 gems were forced to obey in a society where they had no other choice. They hadn't even considered there being any other choice before the crystal gem showed up. Ruby's job was to protect people, keep them safe, and quite literally to resort to aggression.
Hey, can't wait for those rebels to get here.
Haha! Yeah, when I see those rebels, I'm gonna punch them right in their faces.
What are you saying? I'm gonna punch them all over their bodies, and then it'll be over. What if I just punch you?
Sapphire, on the other hand, is the cool, calm, and collected one who is expected to be able to predict the future and had the weight of a war on her shoulders. That's when their fates collided one day and changed when they come to form Garnet, a new gem who was originally burdened with the gift of future vision. She has a lot of questions and she's confused and scared.
I feel lost and scared and happy. Why am I so sure that I'd rather be this than everything I was supposed to be? And that I'd rather do this than everything I was supposed to do?
Welcome to Earth.
Can you tell me, how was Ruby able to alter fate? Why was Sapphire willing to give up everything? What am I?
No more questions. Don't ever question this. You already are the answer.
In the future as Garnet, we see further what I mean when I say she's burdened by future vision.
The future that you created was so improbable that I didn't see it coming at all. And now I can't understand where this timeline is going. We're on the outskirts of the possible, following trickles to who knows where. Everyone's looking to me for answers. I can't stand it. It's so hard for me to just exist in the first place, Stephen. I want to love being alive. I want to love that there are so many possibilities. But I'm the one with disability, so I've got to be our guide. I thought, if I could use my future vision to jump into improbable futures, I could get out ahead of the next big unexpected change. But I don't know what I'm doing here. I can't tell what's probable anymore. Anything could happen. Anything could happen to these cats.
Even as the stoic leader, she's still lost, scared, and confused. Her future vision has many paths, and she can't tell which one they're headed down each day. Earth and Stephen are confusing and new. There are so many possibilities that she can't narrow down just one. Everything she used to know has changed, and she can't have any faith in anything except for herself, and even that trust gets broken. We see that when she does have problems, she avoids them and pretends they don't exist.
What are we gonna do?
Phew. What? We did it.
What?
We got the message.
She's bound to be somewhere, right? Any new ideas? I'm sorry.
This is called denial, and it's linked to a trauma response called flee or flight. The flight response is a trauma response controlled by panicked, avoidant behavior, pushing you to isolate yourself from a perceived threat. When triggered, it can be hard to sit still, stay in a room, or even talk to people. There is no one moment where we really got to see Garnet's conclusion with her trauma, but we got to see her conclusion with her relationship. These kind of go hand in hand, but it's good to note that this is because both Ruby and Sapphire have their own mental health that can change just like any other gems, but since they are fused together, it's a bit more complex than that. We see this from Garnet multiple times, and not just her. We see this from Pearl as well. To begin to touch on Pearl's trauma is very difficult. She also acts as a perfect allegory for CPTSD. There's the avoidant behaviors, the reliving of the trauma, the inability to talk about the trauma, and also the fact that she fought in a war. We see her constantly reliving the war and fearing its return, and it's not until much later in the series that we see her begin to cope with this. This is called trauma denial. For some people, the first step towards that recovery may be the most difficult one. Confronting the traumatic event and what it means to you may bring up difficult and hurtful memories and sensations. This is why denial is often a natural trauma response. Trauma denial may serve as a shield that emotionally and mentally disconnects you from a traumatic event, but it may not aid you in healing the pain. Ongoing trauma denial causes more suffering than there needs to be. Although trauma survivors may learn how to suppress this unpleasant experience from their past, their body and mind will continue to carry it until the trauma is confronted. We see while exploring Pearl's mind that Season 5 Pearl is her most healed state. We see an actual linear timeline of her trauma and abuse, and we can physically see her suffering from it.
Show me the status of the Prime Kindergarten.
Yes, my diamond. You look just like a quartz. You changed your shape for a day.
Down here, we're not creating life from nothing. We're taking life and leaving nothing behind.
Forgive me, my diamond. I shouldn't have brought you to such a place.
But Rose also found herself with allies. Other gems that were cast out for being wrong. All inspired by Rose to live for ourselves on Earth. She was our leader, and Earth was our precious home. And those who fought to save it became known as the Crystal Gems.
Your status, my purpose, none of it will matter anymore. This will change everything.
So, for my last order to you as a diamond, please, let's never speak of this again. No one can know.
Rose feared that soon she would have nothing left to protect. Rose Quartz drew her rebel blade and shattered Pink Diamond, saving the Earth for all time from her reign of terror.
What? I'm going to stay and fight for this planet. You don't have to do this with me. But I want to! I know you do. Please, please understand. If we lose, we'll be killed. And if we win, we can never go home. Why would I ever want to go home if you're here? We're the only ones left. Homeworld. They were all leaving. We thought we'd won. There was a bright light, and everyone was... Why did I do it? It's Rose. What was she thinking? She can't have a baby.
Well, this is awkward.
What am I going to do when she disappears? I'm going to lose her. No, we're just here to drop off these gifts.
Right. Sure.
She's right there. She just can't reform because she has this baby around her. She wanted this so much. I just don't understand why. Everything should grow and everything should change, and isn't it so great how it comes so naturally to humans? Well, it's not natural for us. It's not natural for me.
Mom fought here?
That's right, and I fought alongside her. I was your mother's sole confidant. For the words she could share with no one else, I was there to listen. Our memories of Rose can't be tainted by some overgrown brambles. I was the one she told everything.
Yo, you're not the only one who misses her.
You can't understand how I feel. None of you had what we had.
She probably just wanted to protect you like everyone else.
What do you know? You've never even met her. Sometimes you even sound like her.
Well, I think you're pretty great.
This is what did it? Burgers?
It wasn't about burgers back then. She probably would have liked this, though, right?
She would have loved it.
Look, if I were you, I'd hate me, too.
I don't hate you.
But I knew how you felt about Rose, and I stayed anyway.
That wasn't the problem.
Then what was?
She fell in love with you.
Well, you know Rose. She always did what she wanted.
I know you both need it. I know you both need it.
You two just never saw me in action. Breaking every rule, taking on the authorities, so I could indulge in the joys of life on Earth.
Okay, nobody's gonna say it. She kind of looked like Mom. You noticed, I noticed, we all noticed.
Oh, that's why you were acting like such a goon.
No, that's not it. I'm done thinking about the past. Tonight, I'm all about the future. I wanted to tell you for so long.
Another note while editing, this is a perfect visualization for compartmentalization. Kind of love it. I always have since the first time it aired. Mwah, chef's kiss. Pearl is one of the first characters next to Steven to tell us the story of trauma and abuse. Her story is very complex. She never believed that she was anything more than what she was told, until one day the overseeing powers told her that she could be whatever she wanted. She felt it was wrong because that wasn't what she was made for.
What am I doing? I need to be replaced immediately. No. But I've been imagining things, even when you haven't asked me to. I imagined that I ran away and met you here on Earth. A rose quartz. And I'm not yours, but I make you so happy anyway. Isn't that ridiculous? Tell me to stop. Please don't ever stop.
But over time, she fell in love with her idol, and she fell in love with the life that she was given, and she believes that this is what gives her worth in the world. When her feelings aren't reciprocated anymore and her love essentially dies, she physically doesn't know how to cope anymore. She goes through a long period where she's not just grieving Rose, but the relationship that could have been. It's a very complex internal struggle for her, and we actively get to watch her grow and change as the series progresses. And then there's Amethyst. She internalizes and compartmentalizes a lot of the trauma she went through. To use proper terms for this, compartmentalization is the defense mechanism in which people mentally separate conflicting thoughts, emotions, or experiences to avoid the discomfort of contradiction. That uncomfortable state is called cognitive dissonance, and it's one that humans try to avoid by modifying certain behaviors or beliefs or through strategies like compartmentalization. It's no different with Amethyst. She pushes it all to the side until she finally explodes and is able to have her big moment of processing.
Who's the runt now? You ready for more?
As previously mentioned before, she was a runt in a society where she was deemed unwanted, and she's the youngest out of the gems. Her formative years were spent fighting a war that she inherited.
We shouldn't have to deal with any of this. We shouldn't have to fix any of this. We weren't around for her stupid war. This is everyone else's problem. This has nothing to do with me.
We see her start to struggle with this in the early seasons, and this further expands into her struggles with trying to be good enough for Rose.
What's wrong with us?
Well, I know what's wrong with me.
She and Steven play out very similarly, with the difference being that Amethyst was eventually able to cope with what she went through.
Finally figured out what I'm supposed to do. I spent so long not knowing who I was or what I was made for. I had to figure that out for myself.
And that leads us all back to Steven. Throughout the series, everybody gets their moment of healing, and I mean everybody, even Greg, who is coping through the loss of his partner. The only person who was never allowed to heal was Steven. Steven grasps that he's gone through traumatic situations, and he stopped to apply this to the people around him, but never truly to himself.
Amethyst, wait! There's someone else who needs help even more, and it's you! Amethyst, we need to talk!
You wanna know how I feel, Steven?
I thought I was pretty clear about that.
I thought I was pretty clear, too. I feel like I don't want to say, what about me, okay? And I don't want to be bent out of shape. I don't want to be stuck in the past. And I'm not responsible for what Rose did. None of us are. Not you, not Pearl, and not Garnet. But I am responsible for me. And right now, I am not going to dump another 1,000-year-old complex on you or anybody else. I'm ending it right here. I am the Ding Dong Sunshine Future, your friend forever. And I'm not gonna fall apart on you.
Amethyst.
So, Steven, how do you feel?
Pretty good.
When things stopped being a life or death situation, he always found another outlet, another thing to fix, or another thing to occupy the space.
See, Amethyst? With just a small tweak, your good idea is working even better.
I don't know about this, man.
Come on, let's go help some more gems. How would you like your magical spit administered today?
Ah, jeez, the not kissing one?
You got it.
It's good to mention why Steven had this episode. We know what caused it, but it's easy to miss the key building blocks. I use this to explain trauma to my friends, and I don't think it's the most accurate model, but hey, work with me for a minute, yeah? There's this icebreaker game we played as kids. You try to chip away at the blocks of ice without letting the penguin fall. Whoever knocked the penguin down lost. Consider this. Each brick of ice is a support system, a coping mechanism, something that's helping to keep Steven stable. But throughout the series, we slowly see this chipped away at before the penguin, or Steven in this case, fell through. First it was his sense of safety. Then it was the role reversal where Steven took on responsibility that he shouldn't have had to take on. And then there was his coping mechanisms, and then it was his relationships. In the original series, he had a big identity break starting from season 3 to 5. He's very consistent in letting you know that he isn't his mom. It's something he had to work through, and it's not till the climax of the series that we see a slight resolution. But there was something I did catch when rewatching it. Steven is his mom.
We can't both exist. I'm going to become half of you. And I need you to know that every moment you love being yourself. That's me, loving you and loving being you. Because you're going to be something extraordinary. You're going to be a human being.
That's something that's stated at the start of the series. It's said in the tape that's made to him. It's brought up multiple times before the Pink Diamond reveal, and I do think that's a big part of the realization for Steven. He is his mom, but he isn't. Just like any other human being, he will always have his mom a part of what we'll call his lineage of reformation, but he will always be Steven for as long as he physically wants to be. He spent so long questioning whether he was his mom or not, that seeing her turn into him before his eyes solidified that he, Steven, isn't her, but she is a piece of him.
Are you back together? Are you you?
Yeah, I'm me. I've always been me.
Your parents will always be a very critical role in your development, whether it be as a newborn baby, a toddler, a child, or even a teenager. A human will always need somebody to guide them and teach them how to exist in the world. And Steven had to come to his own realization that even as a gem, this is relevant. This is where there's a big lead-in for the trauma in Steven Universe future. He was dysfunctional his entire life to a point where it's been the leading conflict of multiple situations, but it's always brushed off with a conversation and a hug. This was also memed to High Heavens, but it's actually one of the building blocks that led to Steven's breakdown.
Oh, don't worry. I fixed that too. I can fix anything. I can just keep messing up and fixing things forever, and you'll never have to know or think about any of it. Steven.
Like previously mentioned in the game Icebreaker, Steven's support system was slowly chipped away and broken down until he was left with nothing. He felt detached from the crystal gems.
It's because I've got errands to run in town before classes start.
Of course. Go get him, champ.
Yeah, go get him.
He started to realize that he was running out of people to fix.
Is this really my thing now? Plants? Garnet, Amethyst, and Pearl aren't even impressed. I guess plants aren't as cool as liberating the galaxy.
His friends were growing up and moving away.
It's just that I've always been trying to help my friends. I don't know who I am without them.
Steven, you're great, but you need to let us live our own lives.
If you don't get people in the glow, you'll suffocate them. In this case, literally.
I know. I don't want to hold any of you back. I just can't help it if my dumb heart misses you.
And he now has to deal with his trauma on his own.
You don't need to go.
What the heck?
You guys, I love you, but you can't help me anymore.
Even when he turns to his father, he felt betrayed.
I could have done all that stuff. My problem isn't that I'm a gem. My problem is I'm a universe. Watch out!
When he goes to speak to the diamonds, we see him actively reliving his trauma.
I'm a diamond. This is the last thing I needed to see. I don't want to be you. I don't want to be anything like you. Why won't you just go away? Don't hurt me. She can't hurt me. I'm controlling her.
It's dark and it's serious, and it's something I'm really proud to have been included in a kid's series.
Why am I so afraid? She's the one who should be afraid. What's going on? What? Don't stop it! I don't like this! Too bad. Let me go! Please! You're scaring me! This is for everything you put me through! What was that?
It shows us that dark thoughts like these happen, and that working through them is important. This could also be an allegory for self-harm, but I'm not sure how far I would like to go with that. What I do know is that it's an allegory for PTSD. Him constantly reliving his own past, but also the past of his mother. We also actively see him dissociating. We see him trying to fix his mother's past like he used to do, but it doesn't work like that anymore, because Steven is expected to fix himself now. and this is when Steven experiences his own trauma denial, which lasts throughout the entirety of Steven Universe Future.
It's just baggage.
Is everything all right?
Yep, but this is not about me. We're gonna get you fixed up, and I know just the Pearl to help us. This isn't happening. I didn't think about shattering White. I didn't shatter Jasper. I didn't fight with Dad. I'm Steven Universe. I'm fine. I'm fine! I don't know what you're talking about. I'm fine. Awesome, in fact. Come on, you've seen me when I wasn't doing well.
This is where we see what was being mentioned earlier with trauma denial, where the negative effects take place. If you don't get past the short stage of denial, it can build up to a full-fledged, unavoidable trauma. In that case, denial will stop you from taking any action about your trauma, and instead encourage you to continue the negative behaviors in order to feel like you have control over the situation. Refusing help can mean refusing medical treatments, counseling, or support from others, resulting in further harm for yourself and everyone around you as well. Instead of looking for help for that lump in your throat, you would continue denying it, allowing the trauma to metastasize to a point to your own detriment. This is where we see Steven's breakdown come to a peak where he goes to meet Jasper. Jasper is one of the few people he was never able to beat on his own. He always had help from someone else when trying to defeat her in the past, and I think he was subconsciously aware of this. Jasper is also one of the last connections he has to his mother at this point, with the series and the show being heavily reliant on Steven reliving his past with his mom. Steven shatters Jasper, and while this is explained away in universe, it's obvious that this weighs heavily on Steven from a psychological standpoint. This is where he begins to truly view himself as no different than his mother. I mean, this is why he originally in the movie didn't want to take over her role.
I know you all might be thinking of me as the new Pink Diamond, but you don't have to put me on a throne. I already have a rightful place, and it's on Earth.
Because he didn't want to be her. He was having the pink outbursts. He was treating people differently. He was taking over her role in her hierarchy. The difference now happens to be that Steven views his mother as a monster. He doesn't like her, and Steven Universe Future makes that very, very clear. She is a villain in Steven and many other people's eyes, and they believe that there's very little good that she did. So if he is no different from her, where does that leave him?
How messed up is that? That I've gotten away with this for so long. You have no idea how bad I am. You think I'm so great, I'm so mature, and I always know what to do, but that's not true. I haven't learned a thing from my problems. They've all just made me worse. You'd think of me as some angel, but I'm not that kid anymore. I'm a fraud. I'm a fraud. I'm a monster!
He's very conflicted, and it leads him to believe that he too is a monster, and it leads back to the fact that Steven's mental state affects his powers. He felt like a monster, and so he became one. It's called a self-fulfilling prophecy. A self-fulfilling prophecy is a sociological term used to describe a prediction that causes itself to become true. Therefore, the process by which a person's expectations about someone can lead to that someone behaving in ways that confirm that expectation. It's very common for people who believe that they are bad to give up on being good. On top of this, it's very hard to have self-control during a meltdown, which is what this is very obviously written to be.
I know, I just have no idea how they're gonna take it. They've been so protective of me these last few months since my meltdown.
It's important to note that while the term meltdown is commonly associated with us autistic people, it's also possible for neurotypical and other neurodivergent people to have meltdowns as well. It's always good to keep that in mind because we're all humans, and it's not possible for us autistic people to have special emotions that other humans wouldn't. All this to say, I'm not calling Steven autistic, just stating that this is 100% a meltdown. For context, here are some of the symptoms. A meltdown is an intense response to an overwhelming situation. It happens when someone becomes completely overwhelmed by their current situation and temporarily loses control of their behavior. This loss of control can be expressed verbally, an example, shouting, screaming, crying, physically, an example, kicking, lashing out, or biting, or in both ways. A meltdown is not the same as a temper tantrum. It is not bad or naughty behavior. Many autistic people will show signs of distress before having a meltdown, which is sometimes referred to as the rumble stage. They may start to exhibit signs of anxiety such as pacing, seek reassurances through repetitive questions, or physical signs such as rocking or becoming very still. Once you have a clearer idea of what may be triggering meltdowns, think about what ways you might be able to minimize that trigger. Something that has been shown throughout the show is that Steven uses comfort, talking, and hugging to solve problems. This is quite literally the reason why it helped calm down the meltdown. There's this belief that Steven was cured by a hug, but the fact of the matter is that Steven's family was able to calm down the meltdown, and Steven was able to work through the situation in that moment. The things they said to him made him no longer believe he was a monster.
Steven!
I fell apart, you were there for me. I want to be there for you now. I'm here, Stephen. I'm here.
Is this working? You hear us? Stephen!
I'm here, Stewball! Whatever you need, I'll make it happen. You hear me?
Steven! You never gave up on me for some reason I don't understand! I'll do the same for you!
I know you'll feel bad. Believe me, I get it. Sometimes it feels like you're never gonna like yourself, but it's possible, man.
Stephen, I know how awful it feels to keep a part of yourself secret. You shouldn't have to hide anything from me.
Stephen, you must have been so afraid to show us this side of yourself. But we're not going anywhere. We're all gonna take care of you the same way you take care of us. You know what? I don't have your powers, but...
Huh? Whoa. I'm... Lion. Lion.
This was something that I heavily related to as an autistic person with CPTSD. The show was genuinely quite traumatic to me to watch because it was essentially holding up a mirror to my symptoms. So I think that's why I felt so passionate about explaining what I saw while watching. This video was long, and it's not quite over yet, but I just really wanted to explain how, in my opinion, the show was extremely accurate for me. I think they did very well with the subject matter, and I honestly couldn't rewatch the show until I processed my own trauma because it was like salt on a fresh wound for me. I think the fact that they were even able to achieve that with the kids show alone is incredible, because imagine the amount of children they can help, let alone teens and adults like me. This is also why I think the true ending of the show is beautiful. It doesn't end with a hug, it ends with Stephen in therapy.
I decided to move out! Don't worry about me. I have a very comprehensive plan to visit all 39 states before I decide where to settle down. And I can still video chat my new therapist while I'm on the road. Do not try to talk me out of this.
Good morning, Stephen.
Actually processing his trauma and going down his own path. He's no longer codependent on the crystal gems or on his father. He's not relying on the diamonds for information about himself. He's not relying on Connie to experience the world and know things. And for once in his life, he's certain that he isn't his mom and he doesn't have to carry the burdens of what she did. He allowed himself to address his trauma and actually move on from it in therapy. He was able to connect with Connie and go on his own way.
Text me when you get to that bed and breakfast.
Check your left rear tire before you hit the desert. It's not serious. It could be trouble if left unchecked.
Later, brah.
Just a little time. Just a little something
And I sobbed. For days. That is not an understatement either. The show ending felt like a death to me, and it got me and so many others through some really dark times, and I'm extremely thankful to say I got to be there as it happened. It hurt a lot, but I also think it helped me go through an experience I genuinely wouldn't have gone through without it. It helped me cope with my own traumas, and I think that's really beautiful. If this show is cringe, then I'll be thankful to go down as cringe with it. It was special and beautiful, and there's no other words I can use to describe the way it makes me feel. I think it's something that will genuinely stand the test of times, and it talked about so many different topics in an era of television where nobody else was really doing that, especially in children's media. Well, they were doing it, just not to this, extreme levels. This being the main and only plot line. It's very incredible to me. But with that, thank you for watching this video. If you liked, please hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification. Here's some of my social medias. And I will see you guys in the next video. I hope you liked this one, and thank you so much. Bye, guys. And honestly, I think it's quite special how many different topics they were able to touch on. I don't think they ever expected the show to get as big as it did, and to be as thorough as it did when they released this episode. I guess we'll never know. Maybe they expected this? Okay, bye, guys.
Here, I want you to have this.
My very own Steven shirt?
Be the Steven you want to see in the world.